Queen Elise was in her room with Prince Edward's head on her lap. The little boy could tell his mother wasn't happy, but he was waiting for the right time to speak. Staring at his mother for a few minutes, he looked away when her eyes caught his.
"Is there something you want to say, Edward?"
Queen Elise asked when she caught him staring at her. Prince Edward sat up and held his mother's hands in his little hands, and he said,
"Is everything okay between you and father?"
Queen Elise couldn't believe her ears. How did he know something was wrong?
"What do you mean, Edward?"
"You look sad, Mother, and there's only one person who could make you feel this way."
"And who is that?"
"Father,"
he answered. Queen Elise didn't want to make her son hate his father, so she tried to cover up the truth.
"It's not that you am sad."
She lies with a fake smile plastered on her face.
"Then it's what?"
"I am fust tired from the trip. I need to rest, that's all."
"Is that so?"
Prince Edward asked. Queen Elise nodded while patting his head.
"Why don't you lie on my laps instead?"
Queen Elise didn't know when she started laughing. She looked at her son, wondering what kind of man he would grow up to be. The prince's eyes were golden brown, and his 2 cheeks had 2 dimples that were so deep that without him talking or smiling, it could be seen. He was handsome, and there was no doubt about it. His caramel skin was gotten from her, and his calm attitude was gotten from her too. But there was one issue with the prince. He had anger issues. A lot of people consider him a spoilt brat. But that's not true. The only issue was his anger. He could pull down the kingdom when he is angry. He makes wrong decisions when he is angry, and this scares the queen. She hopes he doesn't become like his father. He was kind, just like he is now, but when he became king, he changed. She wondered if that's the same fate her son will have.
"Edward,"
She called him with a serious look on her face.
"Yes, Mother."
"can you promise me something?"
The prince nodded.
"Anything for you, Mother."
He replied. Queen Elise sighed before she said the words.
"Do not be like your father."
Prince Edward looked at his mother, wondering why she'd say that, but instead of asking any question, he nodded and said,
"If that will make you happy, it will make me more than happy. Then I will do as Her Majesty desires of me."
Queen Elise smiled and pulled him into a warm embrace. She didn't know he'd keep the promise, but she was glad he agreed without further questions. She noticed that her son didn't just have her husband's anger issues, but he was also smart and intelligent like him. That was something she was grateful for. The door flashed open, revealing the king with an angry look on his face. "That priest likes getting on my nerves." The queen pretended not to see him fuming and continued discussing with her son. The king turned, and when he found out she wasn't saying anything, he went to meet her.
"Edward,"
He called.
"Yes, Father."
The boy answered.
"go to your room. I have something to discuss with your mother."
He said without taking his eyes off his wife.
"As you wish, Father."
The prince ran out of the room. Queen Elise got up from the bed and was about to leave when the king held her by the wrist, stopping her from going further.
"May I have a word?"
Him,
"May I refuse?"
she answered. King Ghardiel smiled, knowing it wasn't going to be easy to get her to forgive him, but he was willing to try. He looked at her golden brown eyes and her slender body, which attracted her to him when they met 10 years ago. She was a beautiful maiden who loves to dance and sing. She was praised and adored by everyone in the kingdom. She was kind-hearted, beautiful, sweet, and sexy, and he couldn't stop thinking about her. A year later, he asked her to date him, and she turned him down. He kept shooting his shots until she finally gave in, and here they are together.
"You still look radiant like you did 10 years ago."
"And you are not the same man I got married to."
"I know, my lady."
He answered.
"But ruling a kingdom can change you."
"No, it cannot unless you give in to it."
She sat on her bed thinking about how loving he was when they started as friends, to lovers.
"You were a good man. Kind-hearted, sweet, understanding, but now—"
She paused. She quickly wiped the tears that rolled down her cheeks.
And now?
King Ghardiel asked, staring into her teary eyes.
You are a different man, heartless, thoughtless, a devil in a human form.
She answered while glaring into his eyes.
If I knew you would change this much, I'd never have said yes to you.
With that, she stood up and walked away from him. Elise, he called, but all that could be heard was the slamming of the door. King Ghardiel sat on the bed with his palms on his face. There was a reason why he changed, but he wasn't ready to disclose that reason yet. He felt no one needed to know his reason, and as a king, he felt he owes no one any explanation. He got up from his bed and went into his son's room. He figured he hasn't been with his son or spent time with him as he should, but when he got there, his son was already asleep on his wife's lap. He looked at the perfect image of his wife and son, and a smile crept on his lips. I am sorry for hurting you, but I have to do what I've got to do as the king of this land. I don't care if the guardians are going to punish me or kill me. The deed must be done. He took one more look at his family and left the room. Despite the fact her eyes were closed, she heard everything King Ghardiel said, and without knowing, a tear dropped from her eyes down to the bed. Does that mean there is no turning back? She asked herself before crying herself to sleep.